You never know what someone's going through in their day to day.
It's amazing. You just come full circle and
like sleep on the pavement.
Yeah, man. Best part was the crowd.
All right, welcome back to the Loft. This is we're breaking in the new studio, officially in the new studio, and wanted to have a guest on that would, really give a true impact and the essence of the Loft, we call it. Brian Mcguire, thank you, brother. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was a good morning, beautiful blue sky day. Weather was perfect. One guy was running late, relieving another member at that firehouse. So I took 4 other members with me and jumped in the work truck and drove to the site. Just hanging out, waiting to start the job. And the last member came in, and he came driving down the driveway pretty quick. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? You're going to get us in trouble. Mm-hmm. And I said, you can't be doing that here. He's like, oh, you won't believe it. Plane just hit the World Trade Center. So we're like, how can you hit a building? It's a beautiful blue sky day, not a cloud around. So we turned on the equivalent to 1060. Up there, it's 1010 winds. Turned it on the AM radio, and we were listening to it, and they were reporting a Cessna plane hit the building. We couldn't see because there was 2 bigger buildings blocking our view, but we could see a little bit of smoke drifting across the river. So we walked down, and sure enough, the Tower 1 had smoke and fire coming out the top of the building. Mm-hmm. So we were just like, okay. The first thought of everybody was, call the firehouse and see what's going on. They called the firehouse, and they were talking to the members who we saw come in that morning, and they said, we got to go. We just got to run to go to the World Trade Center. And that was before the second tower got hit. So it was probably about 8. Let's see, the first building got hit at 8:46, so it was probably...
Yeah, pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, it was before 9 o'clock, so the first tower got hit at 8:46. So it was probably 8:50 by the time they called the firehouse and they got the call to go, and it was before the second tower got hit. The second tower got hit at 9:03. So that was the last time anybody had talked to the members before they got killed.
Wow.
So we're just standing there watching the smoke, and it's like, all right, it's gonna be a long week. It's gonna take a while to put the fire out, but the guys are like, well, we're gonna put this fire out.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, these guys are awesome.
Right.
I was still working in the ambulance. I wasn't a firefighter yet, but I'm like, these guys are gonna have to walk up all those stories.
Right.
The building was struck pretty high, and that was their motive. All right, we'll get the fire out. No big deal.
Right.
And then a little bit after 9, the guy to the right of me, it's like, wow, look at that other airplane. It's getting pretty close to the buildings. And we're like, all right, I guess he's being nosy, just wants to see what's going on. And then within a few seconds, that plane hit the building.
But we do have sponsors for this episode. Shout out to them. And they are Cats, Dogs, Canine, Hustle and Glow, and Brittany Keys Realty. Brittany Keys is one of the top realtors up and coming in the Philadelphia area. She works in houses in North Philly, Fishtown. She even helped me get an apartment, this apartment that I have now. Check her out, and if you need anyone for real estate, she's the one to go to. So, thank you, Britt. Hustle and Glow is a luxury mobile spray tan business in the heart of Port Richmond that serves all Philly and its surrounding areas. There are plenty of times people choose not to get a spray tan or have trouble getting spray tans because of the inconvenient travel, no one to watch the kids, car troubles, etc. At Hustle and Glow, we offer a variety of services such as single spray tan sessions, group spray parties, and bridal party spray tan packages conveniently in the comfort of the client's home. For more information or to see our work, you can check us out on Instagram at Hustle and Glow or book directly through Hustle and Glow website. I will have linked in the description as well. This episode is also sponsored by Cats, Dogs, Canine. Cats Dogs is a one-stop shop for all of your dog needs with training, grooming, boarding, daycare, and more. Located on 35 Mobile Road in Percy, PA, check out Cats Dogs Canine and let them know the Loft sent you. When you reached the towers, what was how many people were you able to get out, and how many people were injured, and what did the scene look like?
Best way I can describe it, looked like a major snowstorm. Instead of white snow coming down, it was white dust coming down.
Wow.
So bad where we could not read the street signs to figure out which street we had to walk up to get to the World Trade Center. I never worked in Manhattan before, so I was following other people's lead who knew the area and worked in Lower Manhattan before. They said, follow us. We know the best way to get there. And I followed. They knew better than me. And not being able to read a street sign, there was no cell phones back then that had maps on it or anything. So we came up the West Side Highway. I remember getting off the Staten Island ferry, and there was probably a few thousand people waiting to get on the ferry to leave to go to safety. There was a lot of people. And what happens is the little ramp goes down onto the mainland. There's a gate, and you walk off the boat, and you're onto the mainland. And everybody's standing, trying to get onto the boat. They parted. The only way I can say is like the Red Sea, and let us come on because they knew we were coming over to help. Wow. So once we did that, we started walking. We walked up the West Side Highway, which would go directly to the World Trade Center, and there was a lot of debris, so we had to do some navigating. We made it up to, I want to say, the West Side Highway and Liberty Street, and that's where we first started seeing ambulances and fire trucks, police cars. Due to the tower that collapsed, one of the towers, whichever one made it happen, some of the ambulances were flipped on their side. There was a fire truck or two on fire at the time, just from all the debris that came down. But our main goal was, we're not going to worry about the fire. We're going to worry about getting everybody out first, and we'll deal with the fires later.
Yeah. How long were you at Ground Zero for?
On 9/11, I stayed all day and all night, and we left at probably 5 or 6 in the morning to go home. Went back to the firehouse to shower, take a nap, and we were going to go back later on that evening. I don't think any of us went to sleep at all. So we took a shower, tried laying down. We all looked at each other.
Probably couldn't, right?
Couldn't sleep, no. And it was just like, all right, let's go back,
How many consecutive days did you go?
I worked there from September 11th until October 28th. Every other day, every 2 or 3 days, I was assigned as an EMT to the Staten Island rescue team. So when they reported, I reported, and I stayed with them. So if one of the members got hurt or if we found a civilian, I was the person going to be taking care of them at the time.
Were you looking for any people? Were people I know firefighters were digging through the buildings and stuff. Were you? Did you have any responsibility in finding anybody?
We did. They would give us any tool we had to help get the debris up. If you see many famous pictures of the Bucket Brigades, you'd just be using your hands with gloves, throwing stuff in, passing the buckets behind you, probably 100, 200, 300 people passing the debris out until the heavy machinery came in. That morning, as we walked up the West Side Highway, there was a little walkway bridge going from the World Financial Center to the World Trade Center, and we actually helped evacuate a firefighter who was trapped underneath of the debris. Instead of us going and digging the firefighter out, we all formed a line, one person on each side, and it was the little rescue basket, the Stokes basket that the firefighter was on. So that was our first encounter of a survivor that morning. I don't think that we had our team that day. We didn't have any other survivors. But we were given assignments. We went down and searched the little mall area underneath the World Trade Center looking for people. We didn't find anybody. The firefighters were given an assignment with the Jaws of Life to go cut some people out of cars and fire trucks that were caught in the collapse. That never ended up happening. So they were just sending us back and forth to where they thought there was people still trapped. And we didn't have any success that morning other than that one firefighter who ended up surviving.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So it was a month process of just what was the entire recovery process? What was that process like for you?
We definitely thought we were going to find somebody even a week or two later, but after 2 weeks, you were like, how can anybody survive without food or water? So in your head, you were thinking it, but it wasn't official yet at that time, where it was like, all right, we're not going to find anybody else alive. And I think it was after 16 days, I could be wrong, then it officially went to a recovery position where you were just looking for any person or any part of a body to send back to the family so they can have closure. And that was really important for us to find something to send back home.
Right.
A lot of people were never recovered. But if you found a limb or part of a finger or something, that was good, so the family could bury something of their loved one.
Right.
So that was
Did,
important.
Did 9/11 give you any type of long-term problems mentally, physically, anything that you still recover from or need to recover from?
So 20 years later, 9/11 is still affecting a lot of firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police officers, correction workers, parks department, anybody who was down there. For a long time, they told us that the air was safe to breathe. It just definitely was not safe. But we had a job to do that day and for a few weeks until we were given proper equipment for respirators. I suffer from lung ailments. I was forced to retire in 2013 from the FDNY. My lungs are not great. I get sick a lot. Along with that, I've had some sinus issues. I've actually had to have surgery in my sinuses due to the World Trade Center. But we're the lucky ones. There's over 2,000 New York City firefighters right now with cancer linked to 9/11. There's 68 cancers that scientists and environmentalists have said have been caused from the dust and debris, and they figured out what was all used in the buildings to be built back in the early 70s, I believe.
It was from the material being burnt.
All that stuff. So they linked up, for now, 68 cancers, and, thank God I don't have a cancer yet, but...
Wow.
Now, Brian, you said when you first got on with the FDNY, you worked as an EMT, correct?
Yes, I worked for an EMT for about 3.5 years before I switched over to a firefighter.
So you were still an EMT up until 9/11,
Yes.
right? So after 9/11, did you jump the floor and went to the fire department side?
After 9/11, I went back to my ambulance, my station in Staten Island, and I worked there until 2003, and then they called. What happened for New York City, you took a written test, you took a physical agility, they combined those two scores together. That was your list number. So I had to wait for my list number to be called. So it took until 2003 to be called. So I left EMS and I switched to fire. It was not a promotion. It was basically I had to quit EMS and start to be a firefighter all over again. That's just how it was back then. Now they have promotions from EMT and paramedic to firefighter, but they didn't have that back for us back then. So
Now, what was your, your drive at, a younger age? Like, did you know you wanted to be a fireman? Did you, what gave you that drive to be like, hey, I want to join the FDNY?
my grandfather was a member of Ben Salem, Nottingham Firehouse. My dad was a member of Nottingham and Feasterville. My brother was a member of Feasterville. My dad and my brother joined, they took the EMT class together. And I was like, my family's big on tradition, and I was going to follow the dream.
Did you ever think something like 9/11 would ever happen?
Never in my dreams. Never at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if we weren't prepared for it, but
I mean, how could you be prepared for it,
they tried a few times. Back in '93, they drove the truck bomb in.
Well, I know there's a in the what building was it? It was in the parking garage, right?
It was in the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
It was either the Vista Hotel or the World Trade Center.
Yeah, I know. And I know I saw when I was watching the documentary, I know like the hotel next to them collapsed. I know a few buildings around them collapsed. And I used to be so like into it, like intrigued by it because it was just so fascinating to me. Just like even like the movies, Flight 93 and like those kind of movies, like it just really fascinated me. And the people talking about it today, and that's why I wanted to get somebody who experienced it in some fashion and who survived it, because I just feel like people need to listen to it, and I feel like people need to hear about it because it was such a big part of our history and such a big part of, what makes our country so great and what made our country, mourn, So were you living in New York at that time?
I was. I moved up to New York in '99.
Okay.
You had to be a resident to be a city worker.
Okay.
So I was living on Staten Island. I moved from far northeast Philadelphia. I grew up in Somerton. Went to Washington High School. Graduated in '96.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I wanted. My goal was to be a New York City firefighter. So
How old were you when 9/11 hit?
let's see, graduate in '96. So
You were probably.
probably like 23, 24.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right around our age.
I was young.
Now,
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, so have you watched any of the documentaries, or you watch anything on it, or you try to avoid it at all times?
Documentaries or they start the end of August and go till mid-September. So you're
Yeah.
flipping through the TV and you'll see them here or there, but there's only so much you can watch.
Right.
Yeah. It still affects everybody
Right.
around September 11th. You're happy to see the guys that you worked with back in the day, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't want to look at it at all.
You guys have reunions and stuff.
The one firehouse does have a luncheon every year on 9/11, and there's always, and the firehouse that does it is great. That's who I was with that day. They always have a luncheon, and all the widows just about come back. All the members, retired and active, are there, and they really do a nice job for a ceremony that day.
What are the when you speak to the widows and people who have lost from 9/11? What do they say when you talk to them?
I wasn't assigned to that firehouse back then, but I knew them. I just knew their loved ones from working with them at the part-time job, so I really had never had a connection with any of the widows.
Okay.
But I have had some connections with brothers of the fallen members, and I still keep in touch with one all the time. And just talking through the bad month, and it helps everybody get through.
Right.
so Brian, what do you do? I mean, from the time 9/11 hit to the time you were forced to retire to present date, like, obviously it's not a good day, and it's a very emotional day for most. So, like, what do you do to help you, like, get through it? Like, what did you do from the second it happened till you retired till
Yeah. What was your
the present date right now?
What was the recovery process like?
I guess the recovery process was every time you had a chance to go work down there, just to bring somebody home. That helped you. It helped the family. That's what we did to make it better.
Right.
Guys talk to each other, make sure that mentally everybody's head was still in the game for when the bell rang to get on the fire truck. You had to watch out for each other, and the other firehouses had to take care of the family still. So when I got to my first firehouse in 2003, the first thing they told me was learn the name of the member who passed away and learn what the family looks like, because when they ring the doorbell, you better know who they are. And that was great because that really taught me respect. It wasn't my firehouse, but I really learned a lot about that one member who passed away from my first firehouse. And, rightfully so, you need to know that. They are still family, even though the loved ones didn't work there anymore.
Do you feel like that brought you closer to them as a family?
Definitely, yes. And you got to know a little bit about the person without ever meeting them. From Ladder 79, I went to Squad 18, and they lost 7. So instead of learning about one, I learned about 7 more who I never had a chance to meet. And the stories about them were unbelievable. They're all heroes. The officer of Squad 18, the day of 9/11, got on the radio right after the second plane got hit. It was either the first or second plane that hit. And he said, "You better call the Pentagon. I think we're under attack." Actually, I think that was before the second tower got hit, because everybody knew after the second tower we were under attack.
Right.
I believe it was after the first. There's actually a radio transmission of Captain Billy McGinn saying, "We're under attack. You better call the Pentagon." And
Yeah.
he was 100% right. So
Right.
you learn by these guys who passed away on 9/11, and keep their memory alive, their spirit. Every 9/11, you don't forget about them.
Now, how far was Squad 18 from Ground Zero for you guys? If
Maybe about on a good day, 7-8 minutes.
now, when I say running hot, like running lights and sirens, or that's just a normal drive?
7 minutes, lights and sirens, if there wasn't much traffic. But everywhere in Manhattan, there's traffic, so
Absolutely.
you
yeah.
make the
New
best
York's
of
always
it.
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is like your most vivid, distinct memory of 9/11?
There's not one specific things that stick out. I remember a lot of stuff. Remember a lot of good. Remember a lot of bad. Some things
Right.
you don't want anybody else ever to see.
Right. Did it feel like? Because I don't know if you ever have those moments where like you don't feel like life's real at certain points in your life. Did it feel like that at all? Like, did it even feel like it was like a day, or like? Because I can only imagine what it truly felt like just to be involved and not knowing what's going on, whether you're gonna make it out, what you're gonna see, and another thing too is like I can only imagine too, like even after the Pentagon got hit, and I watched when I was watching a documentary, I know this lady, the plane crashed directly into one of her meetings, and she was like her first instinct, she was crawling, and she had to literally had to crawl, her arms were like burning, and like she had to crawl and get people out, and like she was saying how I just didn't even feel like I was like alive, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's something you kind of felt just being in that environment and atmosphere and seeing that getting people out and just kind of seeing the building fall. Like, very curious on what you were going through mentally.
I think our adrenaline was pumping so much that morning that we were just more worried about finding other people.
Just doing your job.
Yeah, and I think everybody was thinking that same thing.
Yeah, and I have the most respect for anyone who is a firefighter, officer, anyone who is involved in that type of field, because like I said, I watch a lot of 9/11 documentaries. It's probably one of my something I'm super interested in, and every single person that was either that they found recordings of or they found videos of, every single officer, firefighter, their first thought was just to go in and get people. Like, there were firefighters who knew they weren't going to make it out, and they're on the 100th floor, and they said they got to get these people out, and they kept going up the building, even though it was still burning. Something that I just truly commend you guys on, and anyone who was involved in that day, or just in general too. So even goes for you too, Rob. And I think about that stuff a lot, and especially around September, because it's November now, but it just the 20th anniversary was it? Yeah, it just passed, and so. Like I said, thank you for your service, and thank you for and just even wanting to get people out and stuff like that. But so mentally, the weeks after, what did you do to kind of heal from it?
It was like I don't want to say living a dream, but you were waking up and you were doing it all over again.
Right.
When we would get back from working a day shift over there, we'd go out, have something to eat. We'd just talk a little bit, make sure everybody was good, and make sure you get some sleep. We're back at it tomorrow, and it really didn't affect you till later on, I guess. Mm-hmm. But you were having the bad dreams at night. You just sometimes you go into a daze or a fog, but you were so involved in thinking that you were still going to find somebody dead or alive, or all right, now it's a recovery mission. All the firefighters were trying to keep their head in the game.
Right.
When you were not in the firehouse or at the EMS station, you were checking on loved ones or the firefighters and EMTs who were missing. So that took a lot of time of a lot of the firehouses. But my EMS station, nobody was killed, so we were not involved in that aspect of it. But there was a lot of work to be done. You still had to keep the communities staffed with ambulances. We were still working at the trade center. After I left the trade center detail, I went back to the ambulance, and I'd work a regular shift, and then they would bring debris over from the World Trade Center to Staten Island at the landfill, and they'd come up with backhoes, and they'd shake out the debris. And there was police officers there searching for anything that they could find to identify anybody, any body parts, any identification. I remember they found a police badge or two of people that were missing or gone. So you were looking for anything to identify anybody. And we worked there a lot as well. Sometimes they would let us out on the debris field to help look, and other times we would just sit in the ambulance and just wait to be called if somebody got hurt or sick there.
Right. What kind of dreams did you have?
In a building and seeing a plane come into the window. that kind of stuff. You get the bad dreams of remembering what you saw, what you didn't want to see, but you were forced to see it. But not saying that it was bad that we found something because it was closure for our family. It's just, it ended up turning into a bad dream sometimes.
Right.
You still get them today. I'm retired 8 years now. I still have dreams that I'm fighting fires.
Right.
It's just, it's in your head, and there's really no way to control it. I mean, it's great. I still wish I could crawl down the hallway and put a fire out. Now I'm having a dream, and then I wake up, and I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Damn, it was only a dream.
Yeah.
But I was back into it. I was having so much fun. The guys that I worked with would be in my dreams, and it was like we were back in 2012 before I got sick.
Right.
So, and still have them today. Still have dreams today about being in a firehouse or somewhere.
Did you ever go out to any, like I know for us in the county, like they have like a crisis team that you can go and talk to, like people can come to the firehouse. Like, did you guys ever go through that?
Right after 9/11, they had something called the FDNY Counseling Unit. They would bring peer support in, and they would sit at the firehouse kitchen table, and if you wanted to talk, the floor was open, and if not, you kind of left and went into the other room.
Do you feel as though that helped?
It did for some, not for others. I did go talk a few times just in the very beginning. You were missing a lot of people you knew, so that was like the first shock of it. Missing 12 guys that I knew, what do I do? But then you got your head back into the game. It's like, all right, we need to go back to work. We're done, and it really didn't affect you till later on, I guess. But I remember the first week I went and talked to somebody for a little time, and then, okay, I'm good. Let me go back. But there was a lot of volunteers there at the World Trade Center site also. So you could take a break. You could go talk to a counselor. You could go relax. There was food there, so there was a lot of people to talk to. And that was probably one of the best things that I saw at the World Trade Center. There was a lot of volunteers. A lot of volunteers came to help from throughout the United States, and that was great. That night of September 11th, I remember a lady walking around with a picnic basket around her arm, had bottles of water and apples and bananas. And she said, I know you guys haven't eaten, so this was my way of helping. And having a drink of water and having a banana, that made a difference for the night.
It's amazing.
So it just wasn't the police and firemen, it was everybody who came to help that day. And for months, weeks, the one day we came and there was a pile of clothes, and people were just donating. And it was nice to have an extra pair of work boots that came from somebody's closet or a pair of gloves. So
yeah, I think that's why we're the best country in the world, because it's things like that that should destroy a country, but it ultimately as we grieved and of our losses, we still came together as a country, even through sports teams or whatever the case was, through people on the streets. It truly was remarkable to see that. And we were so young, when it first happened, but that's why I guess I was so fascinated by it, because I'm able to fully understand it and fully understand the extent, and that people weren't coming back. People weren't coming home to their families. People were jumping off of buildings and stuff like that. But on a lighter note, I wanted to ask you, and you too, Rob, actually, what's the best thing about being a firefighter? What's your favorite part about being a firefighter?
Probably the aspect of helping somebody. You know what I mean? You're there. I use this a lot, and Brian, I know you probably can relate. People call you. I don't call them. So you call me to come help you. You know what I mean?
Right.
You call me for a reason, and then I'm the reason to make sure you're okay. You know what I mean? I can help you when your day's just as shitty.
You're somebody's security blanket. You're somebody's reassurance. Yeah.
Exactly. And, there's plenty of times where you think you don't do enough. Bad calls. You know what I mean? Bri, you've been on plenty of them, minus 9/11, just right on the back step, get on a bad wreck or a bad fire or bad EMS run. But just know that you did everything you can, you know what I mean? And that's probably what makes you feel you were there to do something, you know what I mean, when nobody else wanted to.
Yeah. Is that something you ever struggled with, Bri? For 9/11, just thinking you might not have done enough? Do you think there's anything you could have done more?
We wish we would have We wish we would have found more people alive.
Right.
That's what we wish would have happened.
Right.
And up until 2 weeks, we were certain every morning, all right, today's going to be a better day. We're going to find a little void pocket, and there's going to be people sitting in there. That's the only thing that we wished would have been different. But you're absolutely right. People are at their worst. They call you. You look them in the face. You tell them it's going to be okay. You tell them what's going to happen, what you're going to do to help them, and they trust you. And that's great to see them calm down. Okay, I'm going to be okay. They're going to get me out of my predicament, and you're absolutely right with that. You know.
Yeah, there's a certain security I feel like when you are relied on. You know, whether you're a parent or, just a firefighter or anything. You know, having that, knowing that someone relies on you to get something done. I think there's certain like manhood and there's certain pride you take in that.
A few of the friends of the firehouse.
Okay.
I still talk to a few of the members I was working with that day from that firehouse. It's one friendship you'll never lose.
Right.
And it's not every day we talk, but we definitely stay in touch more often than not.
Right.
If not every week, then it's every other week. This morning I talked to 2 or 3 guys, and it was just, hey, catching up.
Right.
You know, how's everything and how you feeling? Because the other guys are sick as well, and it's more or less a lot of the guys who are sick, we have a tighter bond because
Right.
they need anything, we're going to be helping each other.
Right.
Now, do you use meet, like, every 3 months, couple months, just like sit down, talk, catch a drink, get something to eat,
It's tough because when I retired, I moved back to Pennsylvania, so it's a drive. Even though I am in New York every 3 months for doctors, as long as I'm not sick. The one gentleman this morning, Tony, I said, hey, I'm going to be up next Tuesday for doctors. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. He's like, call me. So when we do have the ample time, we always try and see each other. But we always are together on September 11th at that luncheon, all the guys.
Now, when you go back up for your doctors, do you stop in and see the guys at SWAT 18?
Squad 18 is a little bit more tougher to get to because of traffic. But that one firehouse who I was working with those guys the day of 9/11 and for a little time after, I would stop in there every 3 months just to say hi. And I never was assigned to that firehouse, but it's a great firehouse. And, guys were shaking your hand, happy to see you, how you feeling. Squad 18 is a little tougher to get to because it's in the city and traffic and tolls and everything else. All my doctors are on Staten Island, but I would never drive down the street and not stop into the firehouse. The guys in Squad 18, it's my home.
Right. What do they say about still like to this day, like initially when you guys, were that whole month where you were searching for people and in that whole recovery and healing process, was there anything that they said that stood out to you in terms of just like the feeling or the general, vibe of how they were feeling? Is there anything that stood out to you at all?
No. Back right after 9/11, they said, keep your paperwork. There's a possibility you're going to get sick. And I left all my timesheets in my safe, and sure enough, they were right. We were getting sick.
That's insane.
How long after 9/11 did you realize you were getting sick?
They tracked it back to 2007 when I started getting chronic bronchitis. Chronic bronchitis is one of the lung ailments from the World Trade Center. But it wasn't until 2012 when they picked it up.
That's 11. That's insane.
Hurricane Sandy came through. I was in a building where the front facade collapsed, and I took a bit of dust from the bricks that fell. And 2 weeks later, I had bronchitis pretty bad, so I just walked into the doctor. I actually was working the firehouse one night, and that morning we woke up for a call, and I couldn't catch my breath, and sure enough, I had bronchitis. So when you go in sick from New York, you have to go see the fire department doctor, and I just came in and it's like, hey, doc, I got bronchitis again. Give me a Z-Pack. Pull me back to work. The city's upside down from Hurricane Sandy. Now is not a time to be home and resting and having your feet up on the couch. Like, the community needs us and the city needs us, so.
Wait, you were a part of Hurricane Sandy, the recovery?
Yeah, I was working that night. I didn't officially retire until 2013.
Wow. What was that like? Because that's another,
that I thought we were going to die twice.
Yeah.
That night, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna bite the big one here.
Right. Were you guys out there during the whole storm, or you guys were the aftermath?
The whole storm. That building we were on, we got called to a building that was shaking on 8th Avenue in Lower Manhattan.
Trying to see where.
The building, the front wall collapsed. It's actually on YouTube still to this day. Somebody took a video of it collapsing, and you can actually see before the collapse, you see our flashlights in the windows because the residents said the building came out from the window 8 inches. So we were all trying to figure out what was going on, and sure enough, 2 seconds later, it sounded like a freight train, and the whole front thing came down. So
Jesus,
you could actually look into every room from the street. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
And so I was almost at the front door. I was actually going out to get keys so we didn't have to break the doors. All the residents were out front. So as I was going to get ready to get the keys, the wall came down, and I took a bad feed. Some firemen come running in right away. Finally, I jumped in a corner to cover my head because I was like, oh, this whole thing is coming down now. You know, they say the stairwell is probably one of the strongest parts of a building. So I jumped in the bottom, and the guys found me and, you know, got me into an ambulance. I was spitting dust and everything else out. And that is when the wave hit Staten Island. The chief was with me in the ambulance saying, what do you want to do? You want to go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I took a little bit of dust from the brick, and that's when the chief got the call. Something bad just happened in Staten Island. So I was like, hey, chief, what's going on? He's like, I don't know, something about a wall of water just completely drenched half of Staten Island.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, I'm not going to the hospital.
You said is there a video of it? You said
there's a video of the wall collapsing. At the building we were in. It's on YouTube.
I'll have to look for it and see.
If you look up Hurricane Sandy, 9/11 building collapse, Manhattan,
right,
you'll find it. I still have it saved into my phone this day.
Man, you have a pretty interesting life, huh?
Anything like gear, helmets?
I did. I kept my helmet. I was offered to buy it, so part of history. I'm going to pass it to my son when he gets on as a firefighter one day and let him carry the tradition on.
Yeah.
Kept my badge just for keepsake. It has my personal badge number.
Yeah.
We had to turn back in our gear, but it's all covered with soot and cancer items and all that stuff. So,
right. Is there anything you take away from 9/11 in terms of like maybe a lesson or advice or anything you can pass on to either your son or to another person in terms of just, you know, things you might have learned from that experience and that tragic event?
Never forget. Those are the two words that we always think about. Never forget. Just not September. Don't forget the whole 365 days a year. And it's with every tragedy. But you never know if you're going to come home from work the next day. So hug your loved ones very tight when you walk out the door.
Yeah.
You may never come back.
Right. You think 9/11 taught you to just cherish life a little bit more in the time you have?
Now I do because I'm sick, but before, no. We're watching our friends die from 9/11 cancer. We lost over 257 firefighters to 9/11 cancer.
That's crazy. It's still taking people.
One of the guys I was close with, Ray Pfeiffer, watched him suffer for years. And, it sucks.
Yeah, it's unreal.
So, Brian, let's dive into that for a minute. Kev, I don't know if I told you or not, he does a lot of, going down in New York to talk to them guys and, like, fight for them guys to get the help that they need.
Yeah.
Brian, you want to touch on that a little bit?
So, back in 2010, the government gave a 5-year health care plan to anybody who was at the World Trade Center. Rescue workers, recovery workers, anybody who lived down in the area south of Canal Street.
Okay.
Gave you 5 years of medical. They knew we were getting sick, but what the government didn't do was reauthorize the health care. So in 2015, everything that was given to us was just going to stop. All our doctor's visits for the World Trade Center ailments, the medicine, the surgeries, the hospitalizations, we were going to get stuck with that bill. So in 2014 or 15, I joined a group called the Feel Good Foundation, run by John Feel up in Long Island. He was going down with 9/11 responders and recovery workers who were sick, and we would actually go in and tell our stories to the congressmen and women, begging them to
That's
reauthorize
amazing.
the bill.
That's awesome.
And they weren't going to do it.
No.
They were not going to do it. We had a fight to get that health care.
Yeah, they probably were saying, "Oh, so long ago, there's no possible way that
Well, they knew they lied to us
Yeah,
because they told us the air was safe. But the guys who were in that hallway, a lot of guys who were in that hallway in our group, they are now dead from 9/11 cancer, and it all had to do with money. That was the number one issue with some of these congressmen was, well, where are we going to get the money from?
yeah." We can sit and talk here for hours if we're gonna be talking about
Yeah.
why the government doesn't do certain things. You know what I mean? But
Well, I can honestly say I know how the vets feel
Know
now
how they
because
feel,
we were
right.
treated just like them,
right,
and they're still not being taken care of 100%.
it's ridiculous.
So, and then after the health care bill got passed, we won that battle. That is until 2092, which is great. That covers the little kids who were in the elementary school down the street on the West Side Highway.
Oh yeah,
And they have cancer, too.
really?
There was a girl in our group who was coming to D.C. with us. She ended up having 9/11
Are you
cancer.
serious?
So, yep. So that protects
Wow.
them.
It's just crazy the things you don't even think about, man. I mean, what does it have a name? Does your initiative have a name?
It's called the Feel Good Foundation.
Feel Good Foundation. Okay.
They do a lot of good work.
Okay.
That was fighting for the 9/11 World Trade Center healthcare program.
Okay.
And then in 2018, we had to go back and fight for the Victims' Compensation Fund, which gave money to responders, recovery workers, and even the families of the people who died from 9/11 cancer. Every little bit helps. You're sitting on your deathbed wondering, is my family going to be taken care of? And that's really what we were fighting for. So the guy or girl could go in peace knowing that my family's going to get a little bit of money and they're not going to struggle.
Be taken care of. Yeah.
So that was a big fight, and we won that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Bri. I mean, I'll have them linked in the description. Is there a way that people can get involved? Is there donations, or how does that work?
If you look up the Feel Good Foundation, FEALGOOD Foundation, I know John Field will have a donation link on there. Right now, since there's nothing else to fight for 9/11, now they're fighting for the burn pit bill for everybody who was overseas, all the military who was sick. And if you look at that, that's kind of like 9/11.
Right.
The smoke, the dust from the burn pits.
Yeah. Those long term effects. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Bri, thank you so much for coming on. Your story is amazing, and just for you to even sit and come on here and be willing to talk about it and just be able to relive some of those memories, I really respect you for that, and I really thank you for that. And because I think a lot of people don't hear it enough. I mean, obviously you see what happens on TV and all that, but to sit and have a conversation with someone who lived it and still lives it to this day, because of your bravery, I respect you and I commend you and I thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me tell the story of everybody who's sick.
Absolutely. And the Feel Good Foundation will all be linked in the description if you guys want to help out and get involved. But yeah, this is The Loft. I'm Kevin Nichols. That's Rob Rudolph. That's Brian Mcguire. And peace, guys. Thank you.